Chairman Lips, I guess he took a little break. Chairman Lips and members of the Health Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today about Substitute House Bill 248, which addresses current threats to medical informed consent in our state. I am Dr. Kristine Severyn. I live near Dayton, Ohio, and am a registered pharmacist with a PhD in biopharmaceutics, specializing in pharmacology, toxicology, and drug kinetics. As a healthcare professional, I have extensively researched vaccine issues for 30 years. As former director of the Vaccine Policy Institute, I regularly traveled for 10 years back and forth from Dayton to Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, Georgia, monitoring federal vaccine policymaking commissions at the FDA, CDC, and the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. I have written extensively on medical informed consent issues, including a law review article in the Journal of Pharmacy and Law at Ohio Northern University. Please allow me to correct a common misconception about the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccine. When we hear that COVID-19 vaccine is 95% effective, most people think that the vaccine protects 95% of those who take it. Nothing could be further from the truth. First, COVID vaccine clinical studies involved detecting mild COVID symptoms, which can be similar to other respiratory diseases, such as the common cold. The studies did not determine if the vaccines protect from viral infection, transmission, hospitalization, or death. Second, to make the vaccines look better than they really are, vaccine companies use statistical deception. Pfizer's 95% effectiveness number was calculated using the less accurate relative risk reduction instead of the more accurate absolute risk reduction. Such deception leads to reporting bias, which affects how vaccine effectiveness is evaluated by public health authorities. In the Pfizer COVID vaccine clinical study, chart here, and you also have that in your testimonies, in the Pfizer COVID vaccine clinical studies, about 44,000 test subjects were divided into two groups of 22,000 each, vaccinated and unvaccinated. And the vaccinated group, you have a vaccinated group and unvaccinated, and the unvaccinated received a placebo. 8 people in the vaccinated group, that's 8 out of 22,000, or 0.04%, developed mild respiratory symptoms and a positive COVID test, while 162 in the placebo group, that is 162 or 0.74%, developed mild respiratory symptoms and a positive COVID test. This is illustrated on here. In fact, 0.04% on here is so small that you can't even see the pie slice. And over here, 0.74% in the unvaccinated group. It's still a very small slice of the pie, which this all means that 99.96% of the vaccinated group and 99.26% of the unvaccinated group were not infected or sick with COVID. More than 99.2% of each group had the same outcome, whether vaccinated or not, with less than 1% absolute risk reduction in vaccine recipients. So you might ask, how did Pfizer calculate 95% efficacy for its vaccine? What they did, they took the 0.04%, they subtracted it from the 0.74%, they took that difference and put it over, how would I say that here? The difference was divided by 0.74%. And that's how you get 95%. Thus, we see that working with small percentages, these little pie slices, drug companies deceive the public. Unfortunately, this happens with other pharmaceutical products, not just vaccines. You see it every day in television drug advertising. Prominent physicians and others have written books on this deception of the drug that the drug companies use with the public. Here's one by Marcia Angel. You have it cited in there. And she was editor of the New England Journal of Medicine for 20 years. Another one, this deadly medicines or organized crime, how big pharma has corrupted healthcare.
Doctor, we're at 5 minutes.
Well, we're at 5 minutes, so let me wrap this up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. In addition to the above COVID vaccine statistical deception, Ohioans should be concerned about serious financial conflicts of interest among organizations such as the American Academy of Pediatrics and the drug companies. I documented this problem in my June 6, 2017 testimony before the Ohio Senate Finance Committee, and you have that testimony with you there. And this past spring, radio ads promoting COVID vaccine with reference to the Ohio Department of Health and a voice message from Governor DeWine were funded by the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America. This organization employs 11 registered Ohio State House lobbyists. That's the trade group for the drug companies.
Doctor, thank you very much. I think we've gotten the gist of your, we'd like, Representative Liston.
Thank you, Vice Chair Holmes, and thank you for your presentation. I'd like to clarify your background a little bit. Vaccine Policy Institute, I'm not finding that as any sort of official organization that I've heard of or can even look into.
Yeah, if you go to the Secretary of State's office, it was incorporated for a number of years, and the organization is now been, what would you call it? It's stopped, but I founded and headed the organization for several years, and had newsletter and research rights. So you can check on the Secretary of State's website if you'd like.
Okay, and just following up, when I kind of look through, what you've put out there, you reference the AAPS a fair bit. Do you have a relationship with that American Association of Physicians and Surgeons?
Okay.
I'm asking, do you have a relationship with them?
Do I have a relationship with them?
Mm-hmm.
I've had one or two articles published in their journal. Okay. But if you read the article, everything I write is referenced.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you have quotes on their website, and obviously you tag them frequently. So I assume that you might be a member or a component of that organization. Is that correct? Or
well, since it's American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, mm-hmm. I'm not a member because I'm not a physician. However, I am I have a PhD, not just a PharmD, not just okay. So I don't know if you know the difference or not.
Okay, so final question with this. Yeah, final question. And I guess I just, when I see your quotes on their website and I see other things that they've been involved in, I just want to clarify, this is an organization that's been very famous for denying the existence of HIV and saying that Barack Obama uses mass hypnosis on his speeches. And I just wanted to clarify that those were not, do you hold the positions that, the organization that supports you or at least publishes your work does as well?
Well, it's back in the 90s. I know I had something published when I was still working with Vaccine Policy Institute. That's when, things were published with them. So I don't really know what your, I guess guilt by association. I don't quite know.
Just asking, because right now, if you go to their website, you can find your quotes on there. And so I just wanted to make sure that, to see if you did hold those beliefs. That
I would, excuse me, sir.
Right. It's the way it go. Direct it to the chair, please. And then
I'm so sorry.
Please ask for a second question so we just keep it in organization.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're.
Chair recognizes Representative Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your testimony today. The Ohio Department of Health recently compiled statistics and has reported that since January, 98% of the hospitalizations and deaths from COVID have been among those who are not vaccinated. I'm not a scientist, I will freely admit, but that seems to be a pretty strong indication that the vaccine is at least working to keep people out of hospitals or dying. Is it your testimony today that that's all just kind of a big coincidence?
It's very interesting. Sir, very interesting that you asked that, because there's been what the CDC and what the Ohio Department of Health have done was cite data from January to the present before people could be vaccinated. Okay, so they were citing data during a time when people were not being vaccinated or were not to the same extent that they are right now. So it's incorrect to take data from a time when we did not have the vaccine to when we do now. So
Do you have a follow-up?
they were looking at hospital mortality data from January to June, a time frame during which the vast majority of the U.S. population were unvaccinated. And in fact, just recently last week, Rochelle Walensky, the head of the CDC, she acknowledged this is what they did. They used that data from January.
Okay, follow, Chairman. So, I guess following that logic, once folks were widely able to get the vaccine in February, March, April, I mean, if it wasn't working, you would have seen those hospitalization and death rates continue to go up for vaccinated individuals, right?
Sir, okay. There's another thing is that the Centers for Disease Control has also stopped, as of May 1st, they have stopped counting, they have stopped counting what they call breakthrough infections. They saw just thousands and thousands of breakthrough infections up until all the way into April.
With respect, that wasn't my question. We were
Okay.
talking about
Do you have a follow-up?
hospitalization. I do have a follow-up. The question was hospitalizations and deaths. I'm not talking about breakthrough cases. I'll freely concede that folks who've been vaccinated can still catch COVID. But the question was, Ohio is reporting that if you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized, you're not going to die. And your answer is, well, they're calculating it wrong. But I'm not following the rationale here, man. If doesn't it suggest that the vaccine works if for 8 months only 2% of the people who are dying or being hospitalized got the vaccine?
Sir, that's the point that I'm making. I mean, if you'd like, I could cite everything for you like I've done here in my presentation, and I'd be happy to write something up for the committee and let you and inform you exactly when and where and how the Centers for Disease Control and the Ohio Department of Health are not being quite straight with us here.
Just one more, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
If you're saying that their statistics are wrong and they're reading it the wrong way, I have to assume you've run it a different way. How many folks do you believe have been hospitalized or died that were vaccinated?
Sir, I'd be happy to get those numbers for you. I mean, this is what I was concentrating on today because we had 5 minutes. So I mean,
Your testimony is the vaccine doesn't work and the data is not really bearing that out.
Okay, thank you. I think we can take that information from you as a follow-on to amplify. Again, this is a
Who should I send that
clarification.
to, sir? Mr. Lips?
Chairman's office, right?
Very good. I'd be happy to do
Okay.
that. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
the,
Doctor,
yeah,
for your
appreciate it.
testimony.